Let's go to work. All right, so let's jump right into episode 2 and pick up where the story left off. So basically, I left you guys letting you know that I had a group called Silhouette, a girl group. They did well. I also left Clientele Records. So I was doing real well with the girl group. I was writing songs, I was producing, everything was going great. And about, I guess, 7 or 8 months in, one of the members of the group, it was 4 girls, one of the members of the group uh, was pregnant. Now, I wasn't one to tell them what to do and what not to do or what they could do, but pregnancy was an important, I guess, important aspect of the group. Simply because if someone becomes pregnant, obviously you can't perform or do all the dance moves that everyone else can do. I don't want to take any risk. Definitely don't want any liability. So that was a reason for you not to either not to be in the group or have to sit out a long period of time. And at the time, Silhouette was making a nice run, and we actually couldn't afford to sit out at the time. That member of the group actually decided to no longer be a part of the group while when she found out she was pregnant. So we moved on with 3 individuals, and it was a little more difficult. And we never really quite sounded exactly the same. We were okay. We did a couple performances as 3, and then Silhouette had an audition at a talent show, and I think this is where Silhouette officially ended. So they had an audition at a talent show, and it was supposed to be all 3 members showing up, and only 2 members showed up. Those 2 members did do the audition, and about 3 days later, we get a call back indicating we were selected to perform in the talent show. Now, the problem is only 2 individuals actually showed up to the talent show audition. So when I went to call the third individual, she indicated she would no longer like to be a part of the group. Well, that ended up ending us. So when that person indicated that she didn't want to be a part of the group anymore, we only had 2 individuals, and I made a decision at that point that we need to kind of cut the whole Silhouette situation at that point. I gave the bad news to all the individuals, and then one young lady by the name of Janine actually came to rehearsal that day like she normally does, never really missed a rehearsal, and came to rehearsal, and I told her the news of what's going on. She was very upset about what happened, but she understood. And I asked her, well, basically, what do you want to do? She said, well, I love music. I don't want to stop. I want to continue going. So we decided at that point, her and I, that we were going to make her a solo artist. So we gave her the name Miss J, and she actually performed in the place of Silhouette for that talent show. So I called the talent show people back, let them know we accept the offer to perform. However, it's only going to be one individual. They were fine with that as long as someone performed. She performed absolutely very nervous. I'm sure if you talk to her, she'll tell you how nervous she was. But she was the first one on stage. I think she did very well. I didn't really place in that talent show, which was, okay, we understood. But that was the beginning of her start. I went on producing for her specifically. I actually obtained new equipment. I bought a sound module called a Proteus 2000, and this brings us to the year 2002. So I purchased that item. It allowed me to make more creative beats whenever there's extra sounds or more up-to-date sounds, my creativity just seems to go out the roof. So I produced for her. I produced for an artist by the name of Lee's. There was a female rapper I produced for by the name of Deja Vu. And one of the other members of the group who left actually came back and indicated she wanted to do a solo project. So I did a demo for her and produced for her. I have a cousin-in-law who also did music, and he had a group called BAU, or Business as Usual, and I started producing for them. So I'm getting a lot of work producing. I'm having multiple demos done by local artists. So I'm getting real busy. Also, around that same time in 2002, I actually linked back up with Clientele Records. I think three of the individuals in the record label, this was probably 5 or 6 months after I left. They actually asked me to come to dinner, and when I went to dinner with them, they sat down and we talked. They indicated what can we do to make you to have you come back. They were using other producers, but things weren't just the same. weren't the same. They were able to be as creative. They weren't flowing the same way. And I don't know if it was the style of beats that that producer was doing for them. We reached an agreement. I did come back and was in it full fledged. I was still producing tracks for them, with the understanding of how the reason why I left and how things would need to go. They were willing to comply with all that. So back to my solo artist, Miss J. In 2002, she did a couple things, and she auditioned for what was called the American Music Search. And these group of individuals, it was broadcast on the local radio in New Orleans. It took place at a hotel barroom. It took place at a hotel ballroom, and I want to say almost 1,000 people came to that audition. And basically, it was representatives from multiple labels who basically sat at the front of the room, and you would bring them your CD. They would, go through a couple of your tracks, and they would vote yes or no if they want you to go to the next stage. Sort of like an American Idol, but not done live. It was done with your recorded music, so you just play it for them. And it was, like I said, about 1,000 people that showed up to it. So they accepted producers, songwriters, musicians, artists, rap, hip hop, any genre. I actually entered as a producer, and Miss J entered as an artist. So what's weird is some of our tracks on the CD were exactly the same one. So I remember one song we did was called "All I Want Is You," and she's singing the lyrics on the song, but I wrote the lyrics. So I put that on my list of songs to submit to show them A, I do the track, B, I write songs, and she put it on her CD indicating that she's an artist and this is one of her singles. So she did that, and I think you had to have at least four. I'm sorry, three. You had to have at least three. I had five and she had five. So we we submitted it, and they called us all back in the room, and they started calling off names of people who moved to the next round. So weirdly enough, my name was not called to move to the next round, but her name was called to move to the next round. The next round was they gave us like an hour break. We came back, and basically they showed us a video indicating what American Music Search is, how it's nationwide, what to expect when you go there. The next round, or the final round, was in Atlanta, Georgia. So we decided to go to that. I think only 200 people from each city could go to Atlanta. So when we went to Atlanta, it was at least 3,000 people from all across the United States who were there to talk to labels. There were multiple labels that were represented there. Bad Boy, Columbia, Sony, pretty much anyone you can think of was there. There was also a bunch of publishing companies who were looking for writers. There was also a bunch of independent labels who were looking for artists. So basically, how they decided which room you went to, well, basically, almost you decided what room you went to. So there was a chart that was given out saying these are the labels that are in this room, these are the representatives that are in this room, and you had 4 sessions. I think there was maybe 10 rooms, so you got to go in and Miss J and I actually had a walkie-talkies, so she was able to tell me what was going on in the room, even though I wasn't in there. She said they played her music, and initially when they heard "All I Want Is You," they loved it. Even before she started singing, she said everyone I played it for, they loved it. They loved it. Basically, it was a 2-day event, and at the end of the second day, everybody converged back into the ballroom, and one person was on a mic calling out. You were given a number, and you were told to come up to see how many callbacks, they called them callbacks, how many callbacks you had. And then based on the callbacks that you had, you were able to go downstairs into a room where multiple people who were waiting for you, multiple representatives that were waiting for you, were there to talk to you. They wanted to see you. They wanted to get to know you. They wanted to ask you questions. They wanted to swap information back and forth, things like that. So, to make a long story short, Miss J received 4 callbacks. If I can remember correctly, they were from Famous Music Publishing, Maverick Records, Lava Records, and Rockland Records. So she went to all of them, and I didn't meet up. She went to, I think the first one she went to was Famous Music Publishing, and according to her, she indicated that what they wanted to know was who did the track and who wrote the lyrics. And so she gave them my information, and then she went to the second label, and they indicated, that we like you, who did the track, who did the lyrics, and then the third label was pretty much saying the same thing. So when she got to the third label, and they said the same exact thing, she called me and she said, "Hey, I think you need to come down here because they're pretty much asking about you and what you can do for them." So when I went down, I got to speak with the last 2 labels. I spoke with Maverick Records, and the gentleman there basically wanted me to assist their urban department to make their artists transition more into the urban market, to reach more of the urban market. He said, we like how you made this track right here, where it was kind of hip hop-ish, but with an R&B feel to it. We want you to do that with our other artists that we already have signed. And they said, we like Miss J and we want her to come aboard too. So basically, they gave me information and they said, we'll keep in touch. We want you to, videotape her as much as you can. Send us some more information or some more tracks that you do, blah, blah, blah. So the last one we talked to was Rockland Records. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because that is R. Kelly's record label. That individual from Rockland Records pretty much wanted the same thing. Hey, we like how she has like a hip hop feel to it. And now that I think back on it, no offense to R. Kelly, I'm a big fan of R. Kelly's music and songwriting and everything he's done in music. But he was looking, I mean, Miss J was, I believe, 16 at the time. He was looking, to sign a young female artist. To me, she, in a way, favors Aaliyah. So we were thinking, okay, maybe he wanted to produce the next Aaliyah, which we were fine with. And that individual said, hey, we got, I think at the time he had Boo and Gotti were the only 2 individuals that were on the label. Of course, he's R&B with an R&B background. He wanted to add an R&B female singer. So we were excited about that one. And that's probably the one we would have went with. So we went back to New Orleans, kept doing talent shows. We did a lot of shows with Deja Vu because her and Miss J actually collaborated on quite a few songs. So basically, all those callbacks kind of didn't pan out. Rockland, the one we were really moving towards, that guy actually kept in touch with us pretty often. And what was happening was, I think shortly after the American Music Search Conference, R. Kelly had a trial. I think he had that. I don't think it was the sex scandal trial. I think it was another trial. I can't even think of what it was. He was like, as soon as he's done with that, we'll give you guys a call. So basically, that was about a 2 year span. Me and Miss J was like, let's just keep moving. If they call, they call. If they don't, they don't. Let's just keep moving forward. Fast forward a little further into 2004. I actually graduated with a bachelor's in music liberal arts in 2004. I also got married that same year. So life started to happen. What you'll understand is you can't let life get in the way. And I think at one point I did let life get in the way. Once I got married, I kind of slowed down on producing. And me and Miss J didn't have a lot of practices as often as we did. I kept helping her improve herself. We hardly went to the studio, but she entered into a lot of talent shows. She actually won first place in one of them. She won third place in two of them. So that kept her in the loop and helped her improve her skills. So in 2004, since I wasn't doing a lot of production, I had to find a way to keep myself not necessarily relevant, but just to keep myself in producer mode. So what I found is if I took a lot of acapella raps, and would make remixes. So I did that for a long time in 2004. And in 2005, Hurricane Katrina came. Now that really kind of messed up a lot of things. Not only did I have to relocate, I initially thought when I left, I did leave before the hurricane came, so I wasn't stuck in New Orleans like a lot of my friends and even my family. My wife and I decided to pack up our car and drive to Houston. My brother was living out here, and we said, "Hey, we're just gonna come hang with you for the weekend. On Sunday, we'll head right back to New Orleans, whatever, whatever." He was cool with it. We drove there, and the next day we look on the news, and it's back-to-back traffic getting out of New Orleans. And then the day after that, we look at CNN and we see everything's underwater. So basically, in the mindset that I was actually coming back to my apartment, or my wife and I were coming back to our apartment, I left everything. The only thing I took was about 5 pairs of clothes. I think I took my Xbox, a couple games with it, a couple movies. I left a bunch of stuff. I left my high school state championship ring. I left my high school class ring. I left all my production equipment. I did put it on the top shelf, thinking that, if some water came in, it wouldn't touch my equipment. I basically left everything. So after it initially hit, and we were able to go back to New Orleans, I want to say 3 weeks later, immediately, what I went back to my apartment and looked for my equipment. So I came in. I also had a pack of CDs and a case. I'm sorry, a case of CDs, and it was at least 300, 400 CDs of a bunch of collection of things that I obtained. And I went to pick that case up and unzipped it, and it had so much water damage in it. A lot of the pictures on the CDs were blurred because of the water, and it got to it. So as much as I wanted to take that with me, I couldn't. And then I immediately looked for my equipment. So I had an MPC, and the equipment fell off the top shelf and got a little water into it. So the MPC was a little dirty, and the Proteus was with it. So I said, "Hey, let me just pack this up. We're taking this back to Houston. Let's see if it works when we get back to Houston." So she picked up a couple stuff and we drove immediately right back out the city. I think the city had a curfew at the time, so if we were stuck in the city at a certain time, we wouldn't be able to get back on the road. We didn't get a hotel. We were just going to go in and then go right back out. And so we made it out in time. We went back to Houston, and I pretty much took apart the MPC, cleaned it as best as I could, put it back together, powered it on, and it actually worked. So I kept it for a long time. It eventually wore out. I think I let someone use it, and then it just suddenly stopped working. I tried to get it repaired. It was going to cost way too much to get it repaired, so I stopped using it. I actually purchased a Roland Phantom, which had a sequencer in it that was similar to the MPC. So that kind of helped me out. And then I sold the Proteus 2000 to someone. I think I sold it on eBay. Fast forward between 2005 and 2007. I didn't get the Phantom till 2007. So between that time, my wife and I decided to make Houston our home. We stayed in Houston. But I still wasn't doing production as much. But I was, around that time, the Making a Band started coming out, and I got back into being interested in what was going on. So there's a big difference between the New Orleans music scene and the Houston music scene. The New Orleans music scene, it was very tight knit. If you did music and did shows consistently, we knew who you were. It wasn't. I can probably name several. I can probably name 10 individuals that you guys know on a national level right now who I knew on a local level when they were performing locally. Because once again, it was very tight knit. You knew who everyone was in producing. So it was very rare that someone came out the blue, got signed, and no one in the city knew who they were. And for example, a couple of individuals, obviously 3D Nati, Luke James, Mac Main, Currency, Dawn Richard, who's with Danny DeCane, PJ Morton, J Electronica. So basically, all these individuals I knew on a local level. Some of them I went to school with, but most of them, when they performed on a local level, once again, the tight knit community knew each other. Now, moving to Houston, Houston is almost 3 or 4 times larger than New Orleans. The music scene, even though it was very nationwide, and I think right around the time when we moved down here, a lot of Houston artists were breaking nationally. I know Pimp C and Bum B were already national, but you had Paul Wall coming national, Mike Jones, Slim Thug. A lot of those individuals were becoming national. But the community wasn't quite the same. I had a lot of connections in New Orleans, so to build up those same connections in Houston was 10 times harder because it's that much spread out. The city of Houston is very spread out. Once again, since being in New Orleans, you're close knit. You can probably ask someone, well, who's your mama? And my mama might know your mama. So in a way I get a hookup because our people know each other. That's kind of how it was in New Orleans. A lot of people know each other. There's not that many high schools, so you probably know somebody who went to the same high school as an individual. It's not quite the same in Houston. There's way more high schools, way more school districts. You're not really going to know, everyone's not going to know everyone the same way. And then in 2008, I actually got back into playing in a church. I hadn't done it since I was 12. I was very rusty playing live. I know it probably doesn't make sense to you, but trust me, playing live and producing a track is kind of two different things. I can mess up hundreds of times while producing a track, but playing live, you really A, don't want to mess up, and B, I didn't like messing up. So playing in church was something I had to get adjusted to. It kind of helped because the individuals who were also playing in that same band kind of showed me the ropes, and allowed me to get comfortable or become comfortable. And and eventually I did. I became very comfortable. And then when they decided to leave the church, um, they pretty much took the whole band with them, and I was the only person playing in the church. So it kind of prepared me. Like I said in my first episode, what you do in life prepares you for that moment. Well, I think it was set up indirectly for me to learn with that group. So when the time came, eventually they left, and I was able to kind of pick up where they left off and keep the music part of the church going as much as I can. I do want to let you know I did pick up some new equipment, so check this out. Yes, so as you can see, I purchased the Akai MPC Studio. As you see, very thin, it's very light, um, and I haven't used an MPC in almost since 2007. I basically can pick up where I left off. The controls are pretty much the same. It's just almost a condensed version of it, very light version of it. Uh, so it was either this or the beat thing. And I was really going to get the beat thing up until the last moment. And then I did some more research on the MPC Studio and found out, okay, for this purchase, I'm going to go ahead and go with the MPC Studio. Um, I probably will still get the beat thing, but right now the MPC Studio is doing everything I wanted to do. I can even not only does it come with sounds, I can even take the sounds that are inside of my Roland Phantom and use this with the MPC Studio. So it kind of compacted my sound. Um, what I didn't like about the Roland Phantom was the sequencer. The sequencer wasn't something very user friendly in my opinion. So going back to this, something I know, the way I can chop it up and break it down the way I like to, I'm very satisfied with it. So I'm going to stop right there. And as I always say, see you at the Grammys.